Today I bring you your very first vodcast lesson of 7th grade math. In these vodcast lessons, you will be following along with your notes packet as you can see on the screen right now. And anytime that I am taking notes on the screen, it will be beneficial for you to record the same notes in your packet so that you can work off of them in class with your group and on your homework. Please follow along in your notes until you reach the slide that I am speaking on. Past the table of contents, past the fractions page, and we will be stopping on this page. Please take a brief moment to list what you remember about fractions. Perhaps numerator, division, greatest common factor, least common multiple, equivalent, and many more. We will begin with the greatest common factor.
Hot Pockets!
The first part of this lesson, we will be looking at how to find the greatest common factor of two given numbers. In order to do this, you will be using prime factorization
Hot Pockets!
to help you find the GCF. Let's do a quick flashback and discuss what prime factorization is. Prime factorization is finding which prime numbers multiply together to make the original number. For example, if you are given the number 48, you would create a factor tree. And a factor tree would break down all of the factors that can be multiplied together to get that number. 8 times 6 is 48. 8 breaks up into 4 times 2. 6 breaks up into 3 times 2. We move on. 4 breaks up into 2 times 2. And so at the bottom of our factor tree of 48, you have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. And in that circle is your prime factorization of 48. And now we're back to finding the greatest common factor of two numbers. First, you want to factor the given numbers into primes. Let's say that you are given 48 and 54. Take a minute and in your notes break down 48 and 54 into their prime numbers. Your factor tree might look a little bit different than what's on the board, but what is most important is that you have the bottom numbers. The prime factorization of both 48 and 54 are in increasing order. That's very helpful for you to do so that your work is organized. Once you have your prime factorizations of each number, you want to circle the factors that are. So there's a 2 that goes with 48, and there's a 2 that goes with 54. There's more 2's with 48, but I can't circle it on the 54 factorization because it doesn't match. So now I move on to the next number, which is 3. And 3 matches one of the 3's with 54. I don't have any other 3's that match in both, so therefore I can't circle any other matching numbers. Factors of 48 and 54 are 2 and 3. Now the next step in finding the GCF of these two numbers is to multiply the common factors together to find the greatest common factor. So if my common factors are 2 and 3, I would multiply 2 times 3 and I would get 6 as my GCF of 48 and 54. Before I can move on to the next problem, I need to check and make sure that 6 is in fact the correct GCF of 48 and 54. In order to check my work, I have to make sure that the GCF is divisible by both numbers. So again, I have 48 and 54. Is 48 divided by 6 going to work? And yes, it is, because the answer is 8. Test the GCF with the second number, 54, and 54 divided by 6 also does work because the answer is 9. So 6 is the GCF of 48 and 54. Let's see if you can find the GCF of 18 and 44. So in the end, you should have the prime factorization of 18 as 2 times 3 times 3, and the prime factorization of 44 as 2 times 2 times 11. Now the first step is to find the matching numbers in both factor trees. I have 2 and a 2, and that's all that matches. So therefore, the only common factor that I have in my factor trees of 18 and 44 are 2. Therefore, 2 is the greatest common factor of 18 and 44. Next question. You may take a minute and pause the video and work out question number 2 and 3 in your notes. This next slide is going to help you understand the basics of finding the LCM, or least common multiple.
Hot Pockets.
A multiple of a whole number is the product of that number and any non-zero whole number. So if we're talking about the product, that means that the number has to get higher. I like to think of multiple starts with the letter M, and the answer is always going to be more. So multiple, more. A multiple that is shared by 2 or more numbers is called a common multiple, just like you had a common factor in the prior slides. So the multiples of 6, what number times 6 can you create? So 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18, and so on and so forth all the way up. Higher numbers. Multiples of 14 would be 14 times anything higher than 0. 14 times 1, 14 times 2, and so on and so forth, making all of these multiples of 14. The least of the common multiples of 2 or more numbers is called the LCM. The LCM of 6 and 14 is 42 because they are the lowest common numbers of the two, 42 and 42.